Welcome to the first official episode of The Weekly Show with Matthew Botting. It's been a busy week, from President Trump extending the TikTok deadline, to Cory Booker's record-breaking speech, to Elon Musk's impending departure from the White House, and President Trump speaking about a third term. Let's get right into it. On April 4th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order granting TikTok an additional 75 days to secure a U.S.-based buyer, extending the deadline to June 19th, 2025. This decision came just before the previous April 5th deadline. President Trump stated that significant progress had been made on a deal, but more time was needed to complete necessary approvals. Several entities have expressed interest in acquiring TikTok, including Amazon, a consortium led by OnlyFans founder Tim Stokely, Oracle Applevin, Blackstone, and Andreessen Horowitz. Cory Booker's record-breaking speech. On April 1st, 2025, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey delivered a historic 25-hour speech on the Senate floor, surpassing the previous record held by Senator Strom Thurmond in 1957. Throughout his address, Senator Booker addressed a wide range of issues, including immigration, education, and economic policies under President Donald Trump. He criticized actions such as the revocation of visas for South Sudanese nationals and erroneous deportation of Kilmar Abraga Garcia, emphasizing concerns over civil liberties and due process. Booker's speech was both a protest and a call to action, urging Americans to engage in good trouble to safeguard democratic principles. In another significant development, President Donald Trump announced that Elon Musk will be departing from the White House as his role in the Department of Government Efficiency in the coming months. Musk, known for leading companies such as SpaceX and Tesla, faced controversy during his tenure due to policies involving mass federal layoffs and agency closures. Musk's involvement in government sparked nationwide protests, including the hands-off demonstrations, where over 1,000 rallies occurred in 50 states. Critics argued that his policies favored a billionaire-driven agenda, while supporters believed in streamlining government operations. President Trump speaks about a third term. In a move that has raised eyebrows, President Donald Trump has suggested the possibility of seeking a third term in office. Despite the U.S. Constitution's 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 terms, Trump's remarks, initially seen as jokes, have grown more explicit, claiming there are methods to circumvent the U.S. constitutional restrictions. Legal scholars firmly reject the feasibility of such an effort, citing formidable procedural and legal hurdles. House Speaker Mike Johnson addressed Trump's speculation, highlighting the complexities of amending the Constitution to make it possible. Under the 22nd Amendment, no one can be elected more than twice, and changing this would require significant legislative approval. President Trump's new reciprocal tariffs and stock market impact. On April 2nd, President Trump unveiled a new trade policy imposing a 10% baseline tariffs on imports from multiple countries, with additional reciprocal tariffs from targeting nations with significant trade surpluses with the U.S. These higher tariffs include 34% on China, 20% on the European Union, and 25% on foreign-made automobiles. The administration argues these measures aim to address trade imbalances and revitalize U.S. manufacturing. However, the immediate economic impact has been substantial. Financial markets have reacted negatively, with significant stock declines in major tech companies like Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and Tesla. The NASDAQ 100 futures fell by 2.3%, and the S&P 500 futures decreased by 1.7%. Analysts warned that these tariffs could lead to higher consumer prices and potential job losses, particularly in industries reliant on international trade. Economics expressed concerns that rising trade barriers and economic uncertainty could lead to employers reduce hiring or initiate layoffs, or potentially slowing job growth. Global reactions and ongoing protests. The new tariffs have elicited varied responses from international leaders. Tony Blair has urged the British government not to retaliate, cautioning that such actions would not benefit the UK. Meanwhile, China has criticized the tariffs and called for de-escalation talks. The auto sector has faced disruptions. exemplified by Jaguar Land Rover halting U.S. shipments due to a separate 25% auto tariff. Protests have erupted globally, with more than 1,000 anti-Trump demonstrations taking place in the U.S. and abroad. Critics argue that the policy overlooks legitimate economic advantages held by some nations and risks initiating a global trade war. As we move forward, the political landscape remains charged with activity. The administration's recent actions, from trade policies to constitutional debates, are reshaping domestic and international dynamics. Public sentiment is palpable, with citizens actively engaging in the democratic processes through protests and civic participation. The coming weeks are sure to further developments that will shape the nation's political discourse. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Weekly Show with Matthew Bonning. We look forward to bringing you more in-depth analysis of American politics in the weeks to come. Before we end, I think it's important to list our sources to account for bias. Our sources for this episode include CNN, CoinDesk, the WEAA, and globallawfirm.com, as well as Kyoto News. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next week.
Story after story I read that just are such a betrayal, not of democratic values, but of American values. When you sacrifice your core values,